Mr. John Sangwa is no stranger to controversy, constitutional lawyer, lecturer, and outspoken critic of governance lapses. His voice often cuts sharply through Zambia's political noise, challenging those in power to uphold the constitution and respect the rule of law as the nation heads toward the 2026 elections, and as the founder of the Movement for National Renewal, MNR, to mobilize change into a current political dispensation. Mr. Sangwa's view continued to steer debate on accountability, leadership, and the future of Zambia's democracy. We are joined in the studio by Mr. John Sangwa, who is a constitutional lawyer, as we get to dissect so many issues that needs to be spoken about. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, and good morning.
Good morning to you as well. All right. Now, to kickstart our conversation, of course, the misconception that's there is, of course, you are running a party, which is Movement for National Renewal. So maybe you can just give us a brief of Movement for National Renewal.
Yeah, the Movement for National Renewal is not yet a political party. The idea is we're looking at the possibility of it transforming into a political party. Right now, it is basically a group of people that have come together to mobilize citizens to be able to focus on certain national issues. And this is driven by the fact that we've been independent for 61 years and we have lost various opportunities as a country, and we continue to do so. And clearly the indicators are that if we continue in the same direction, Zambia is currently, of course there is a lot of debate, Zambia is currently a very fragile state.
Yes.
And if nothing is done, there's every reason to believe that Zambia will end up being a failed state. And our rationale of this particular movement is to bring people to this reality. Obviously, people have various opinions of their own, which is what you expect in a democracy. But the idea is that you can't just go on talking. I've spent, I'm sure you made it clear in your introduction that I always talk about governance issues, but there comes a time when you stop talking and you act. And part of that change in strategy is to try and form the movement. And the essence of the movement is to try and mobilize people, and we've put a number to it, which is 1 million Zambians by 31st December, to mobilize them to subscribe to certain principles that we have outlined, which are 10 principles, which we believe are necessary for national renewal. The idea is that we can't go on doing the same thing that we've been doing in the last 61 years and expecting a different outcome. And we are saying that it is time for renewal. It is a time to reflect on where we've come from and try and do things differently, possibly for the next 60 years. Because if we continue on this path, I think as a country we'll perish. Because things are so bad. Maybe your generation may not realize this. I'm older enough. I've seen this country go from its best times to its worst times. Right now, everything considered, Zambia is at its worst period in its history. And it is frightening. And I wish I was still at your age, because I wouldn't have this knowledge and picture of Zambia at its best. And it is painful to see it where it is. So the idea, we have set this target of 1 million people. And if the 1 million people buy into that, then we will, at that particular time, make a decision to now form a political party which will have a completely different kind of approach. And that realization is, that decision is informed by the fact that all previous governments have never involved people in the governance of the country. And invariably, I'm sure you're familiar with the slogans that we have had where people say, oh, more money in your pocket. But they don't tell you how more money will end up in your pocket. You recall we're being told, oh, somebody's going, Mr. X is going to fix it, but he never told us how he was going to fix it. The realization, the conclusion at the end of the day is that the country cannot be fixed by one person. It is a collective effort. Each and every Zambian has to roll up his sleeve or her sleeve and get involved in the governance of the country. That is what the movement is advocating for. And once we have the support, a buy-in of people, of 1 million people, that's the target we have set, then we will now look at the next phase, which is the formation of a political party to be able to implement those ideas that we have embraced. So that's what we are. And I know people, of course, have jumped the gun. They're saying, well, the president and so forth. No, the only thing I've said is that I'm ready to serve. And I think ultimately it is up to the people to decide how you like to serve them. And whatever we're doing is born out of experience, because most political parties start like that. Somebody wakes up one morning and says, I want to be president, forms his own political party, and we all know where they have all ended. But what we're trying to do is to do it differently. Are we able to raise 1 million Zambians to join hands and move as one and transform this country? That is what the movement is all about. Okay, so what we are doing right now is to create the concurrence or the support of that number of Zambians, which we have set a target of 1 million. Once we have that, then I think we're on the right path to the renewal of the country.
Sorry to cut you.
Sure.
You said quite a number of strong words, such as the ones that stood out as Zambia being a failed state. That's quite a strong term.
Yes, yes.
What exactly denotes you saying that Zambia currently is a failed state?
I said Zambia is a fragile state.
It's fragile, yes.
And if you don't do anything, it will end up being a failed state. What is a fragile state? It is a state that looks normal. You have all these institutions of government, but in reality, they don't actually work. Institutions don't work. Institutions are weak, and you see massive corruption going on, massive wastage of resources. You see poverty levels very high, youth unemployment very high, and other economic and social challenges, which we have. And one of the things I often tell you people is, name one sector of the country that is working properly. Just one sector. I'm sure you'll be surprised to find one sector of one section of this country that you're saying is working well. There is none. Okay? Basically, all institutions of government are not functioning as they ought to be. They exist, but they're weak and fragile. So renewal means working on these institutions, restoring them. What we have done in the last 60 years, we have changed governments, but we have not changed the way we govern. Okay? It's like you're changing the choir, but the music remains the same. Okay? So one of the things we have to address, we first over the starting point is to accept, should Zambia be where it is, given all the resources and everything else that we have? Should we be where we are? We are one of the poorest countries in the world. In fact, by some account, we're even poorer today than we were at independence in 1964. Okay? So Zambians need to come to this reality. Okay? Even at a personal level, I always like giving this example that if you're unwell and you live in denial, okay, everybody else is telling you to say you don't look well, but you live in denial. Do you know what is likely to happen? You will die. Okay? But you will not go to the hospital until you accept that you're unwell. So as a country, we need to come to the realization, a collective decision. Stop lying to each other. Let's look at the numbers, be factual, and look at it. Should we be where we are? The answer is absolutely not.
So then where did we lose the plot? Were we ever on the right course? I think that's the first question.
Yes, we were on the right course.
In which government?
We started in 1964 at independence. Zambia was the third richest country in Africa. We were far richer than China, Botswana, or most of the third world countries in Africa. We were far, 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 far much better. That's the starting point.
Okay.
So we have to understand, first of all, I'm not ascribing blame to a single government. All governments that we have had since 1964 have failed. Okay? That is why we are where we are.
We do have a call on the line?
Sorry to cut you off short, but just hold your train of thought. Hello, it's YouTube Power Breakfast. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Well, thank you. How are you doing yourself?
I'm very well, thank you. Good morning to the speaker there.
Morning, thank you.
Yeah, okay. My name is Chela Tukuta.
All right, Chela, go ahead with your comment or question.
Yeah, for me, first things first, I love the idea of inclusiveness. Yes. But also, love to ask Council Sangwa if he's aware that majority of our population are not as educated and are not as well informed as maybe as he thinks. Because those ideologies are fine. The 1 million, raising 1 million people who are going to, raise the monies for this, and stuff like that. And I think that's the reason why this government that's there has free education now, because at least an educated society makes informed decisions, and I think it's one thing that should be commended. That's the reason why he started. He had the free education policy, because an educated society makes informed decisions. Okay, because what I'm hearing him talk about are things for people who are informed like myself, maybe who have gone to school and stuff like that. But maybe what is his approach to reach out to the majority of the Zambians in the villages and people who do not understand what he's talking about? Because nowadays we should also accept the fact that this is not America. This is Africa. And there is a way in which Africa loves to be taken. And I'm sorry to say, but your approach for Africa, it will take a long time. I'll be very honest with you. This is the more reason why you see that, okay, first of all, you go a certain direction and then slowly begin to change that mindset of the Zambian people. I remember Elas Pimo once said, the change of the mindset is what needs to be done. And how do you change the mindset? Is when people are educated, people are informed, and people know why they are doing what they're doing. Because at the moment, Honorable, I'll tell you, Council, you'll be hitting a hard rock. Yeah, because Zambians, the majority of the Zambians in the villages, in the combons, how often do you go to those people in the compound? Because your message is for the elite.
I will need you to kindly wind up.
Yeah, no, his message is for the elite, but the person there on the way there, as Honorable Sangwa gone there to eat with people in the market, because in Zambia, it's how you lower yourself from that high table to the lower people there on the ground. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you very much for coming, sir.
Let me answer this. These are some of the misconceptions that we have had, and these ideas have contributed to where we are. Okay? These are the challenges, the problems. I hear these stories very often, and that is what has kept us where we are. One of the things that we talk about a movement is the fact that it is a collective decision. We all have to get involved. Now, is it Mr. Tukuta, has brought a point which is very important. What about the majority of the people? What are we going to do? The question should be, he has noted a problem. The question that is there is, what is he going to do on his own? What will be his contribution? Because I can't do everything. I'm gifted in a certain way, and you guys are gifted in a certain way. That's why you have given me this platform, right? I've come to this platform so that we can share these ideas. But it will be wrong to assume that because the majority of the people in the villages are not aware of these things, then we should fold our hands and forget and then continue on the same path. That is a wrong notion of looking at these things. And that is why in our documents we have made it very clear. No single person can transform this country. It is about each and every one of us. Let's stop complaining. We are in trouble as a country. We are broke. We're not running things as they ought to be. The country should not be where it is. So the fundamental point is for each and every Zambian to ask ourselves, what am I going to do towards the improvement?
The issue we have raised, saying in 1964, Zambia was the third, one of the richest African countries, on number 3. Yeah, I agree. Zambia was the same category with South Korea. And now today South Korea making phones, vehicles, Samsung. So him was there. The one who is there, he was there. Where we went wrong? Because Zambia is the richest country. Why I'm saying this, we have got minerals in terms of copper, compared with the South America, Chile, Congo. We have fertile soil, timber, waterfalls, and also the tourism sector. Now, when you mentioned all these issues, why people are still poor? When you have got all these natural resources, it's God gave us. Well, we went wrong. We went wrong. That irritated the poor police. And this is a poor police. Why can't you come together and share the idea? Then we move forward. What we want, our enemy is poverty. People still going to bed with empty stomach. Some of them, they don't go to school. But we have all those minerals, all those issues which we call them.
All right, thank you very much for coming through. Maybe before you turn to his question, you did mention that there are no sectors that are performing well as of now. If we look at the stats, we are generating over billions of dollars in the mining sector and also in the education sector. The UPND has implemented free education. Would you say that caters for something?
Those are numbers you're throwing around, right? You're generating $1 billion, billions of dollars in copper production. But how many of those billions stay in Zambia? I grew up from Mufulira. You go to Mufulira today, Mufulira is producing, they've been mining copper in Mufulira for nearly 100 years. Okay, Mufulira is still one of the poorest towns in Zambia. When you go there, it looks like a war zone. Okay? So it's not just a question of numbers. You can play around of numbers. If those numbers don't translate in the transformation of people's lives, it is pointless. I'm a product of free education. I know what free education is. What you're getting is not free education. These are just numbers you're talking about. What is the quality of the education that is coming from these schools?
Haven't people benefited from that free education?
Look at it this way. I was a lecturer for 20 years at a university.
Yes.
You know why I stopped teaching? Because the quality of students was becoming lower and lower and lower and poorer. As a result, it was increasingly becoming difficult and harder for me to teach. These are numbers. What we have to do is to be able to analyze. You see, it's always about value. If you spend X amount, you are talking about free education. What is the quality of the education that you're getting from the amount of money that you're spending? These are just numbers that are being thrown around. Now, we can talk about, first of all, who has carried out an assessment as to say, okay, we have invested so much in free education, and this is the quality of the education that we are talking about. In fact, the literacy rate is going down. You are producing kids who are in grade 7 who cannot still read and write. Okay? And I've mentioned this before. How many of our ministers send these children to these to these government schools? How many? Huh? How many? Because that's where you test the quality of the education. I went to free government schools where I was sitting in the same class with children of minister, children of the wealthiest people, children of the most powerful people in the country. We sat on the same desk, wrote the same test. I went to university with the president's children, same University of Zambia. Tell me, where do these ministers send their children? Okay, so let's not just be talking about these flowery numbers. Dig deeper. What do they actually mean in real terms? Well, how do you contain a teacher-student ratio of about one teacher to 120 pupils? How is that possible? Okay, and if you are talking about employing teachers and so, do you know how many teachers we have churned out of our colleges and universities who have no jobs? Do we know do you know the numbers? The numbers are significant. So you can throw all the numbers you want, but what is the real effect in reality? Mm-hmm. And this is what people don't talk about. Okay, so we have challenges. Yes, the last caller was right. Yes, is right, and that is the starting point in resolving our problems, is to accept, why are we poor? Why are we where we are? First of all, you mentioned South Korea. We were richer than South Korea. On a per capita basis, we were richer than China at independence. Okay? But all these countries have surpassed us, notwithstanding the resources that we have. Now, you asked me, where were you, what are you doing? Yes, I went to law school, right? Now, with the benefit of the education that I've had, that is why we are creating the movement. I could have simply chosen to say, you know what, let me mind my own business, like everybody else, okay? I'm comfortable, I've taken care of my family and everything else, and I can forget about these things. But I cannot in good conscience, because I do believe that we all have a collective responsibility to do something for the good of this country.
I will have to cut you off short to accommodate a caller. Hello, it's Future Power Breakfast.
Morning, presenter.
Good morning, sir. Tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
This is Chilando on the line, calling you from Kamala South.
All right, Mr. Chilando, go ahead with the comment or question.
Honorable Sangwa, morning.
Good morning, sir.
I'm good. Straight away, my comment would be that maybe what we need is a hybrid model of governance system which brings on board the diverse forms of greater participation and manifestation in different fields of economic and political aspects. Why have I suggested like that? I speaking here, you ask Shekine and Fortress, wherever I go, I'm somebody who is living with a disability and visually impaired. But from my observation, our national cake here in our country is not shared equally. We are talking of free education, but how many persons with disabilities or those who are blind have access to education and higher education? You, Mr. Sangwa, you can bear with me, you are a lawyer. How many blind people are in the legal field that you know in Zambia? You know none. That I can safely say. Not that we are down, but there is no system and mechanism in place which should facilitate for us to further our education even up to tertiary level. We have only been relegated to do skills, of which even if we can create our handicraft, again, because of discriminatory characteristics and tendencies in our society, they go nowhere. As a result, we are just relegated to be beggars in the street, which is not fair enough. So we need a mechanism of governance at least which should do embrace us all, because we all have different potentials as it is well known. And disability, for so long the environment is conducive, disability is always defeated. All we need is to put everything in place that should support even us persons with disability so that we can excel in different pursuits of human endeavor. Otherwise, that was my humble contribution. I don't know what your comment could be. Otherwise, I solicit for your comment as you pursue for this higher office in the land. Otherwise, Shekain and Sote, we are still together. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for coming through. I think we're going to accommodate one more call before you answer the questions. The numbers are 0955-997-997 or 0979-192485. You can come through with your text, phone calls, or voice notes as well, right here on the Power Breakfast. Hello, good morning. Through to the Power Breakfast.
Hi. Sorry, I'm back again, Shela here. It's one thing I forgot.
Okay.
I think Council is forgetting that the numbers, the time was having free education, the population of Zambia was not as big as it is now. So when you look at quantity and quality, at times also, you have to consider those factors. Right now, what is the population of Zambia? Okay, what was the population at the time Council Sangwa was doing education? Okay, when he's talking about the learning with the children of ministers and all those things, and how many private schools were there? And after KK, which other president from the time of after KK was focused on education or the quality of education? There was a gap until now. And also what I would love to suggest as a person who is vying for a position of leadership, top leadership, at least see some positivity in your country. Yes, not everything is perfect or rose in our country, but I think let's start from a positive point of view where we are able to at least highlight some of the positives and some of the wins, and then we also look at the challenges that we need to look at. And yes, we are not refusing that this country is facing challenges. Yes, we agree. But we should also look at the positives and the solutions.
All right. Thank you very much, Chela, for coming through. You might give your reaction to that.
Yeah. I think it's a good point to acknowledge that things are not okay, right? That's very important. It raises an important point. First of all, let me go to the earlier caller. Okay, I have seen lawyers. I think the first lawyer I met in Zimbabwe was blind, but he was able to appear in court and argue. Very intelligent. Okay, the fact that he had no sight did not prevent him from pursuing a legal career. He had equal opportunities and so forth with even lawyers with sight, because there was a system. I think those days there were a braille system where you could read, but government was able to provide those opportunities so that even if you are blind but you're determined, you could be a lawyer. But those systems that don't exist in this country. It's like if you have a disability in this country, you are condemned. Now, these are all responsibilities that government should be able to take, to assume, and be able to put in place the necessary measures to address those challenges. But nothing is being done. Yes?
Sorry to cut you off, Council.
Yes.
So the part of the clauses that are in the constitutional amendment is inclusion to people with disabilities.
That's correct.
Isn't that a reform to include them?
That is correct. That is the letter of the law. But what is happening in reality, okay? This is what the Constitution says, that in your appointments and everything that you do, you must take into account people with disability. That is a constitutional pronouncement, but it needs to be actualized. There is nothing that has been put in place to make that a reality. That is where we are failing. It is good to acknowledge those settings, and my brother talked about, yes, there's an issue of quantity versus quality.
Yeah.
Yes, but when did the train go off the rails? Okay? But government knew, yes, it's true, the population right now in 1964, the population was 3.5 million. We were 3.5 million. Okay? When you have that set, as government, you have responsibility to plan for your people, even at a family level. Okay? You decide how many children are you going to have. You can only have the number of children that you can actually manage to look after. Even as government, that's why we have statistics, we have census. Government can see the direction of the population and be able to take measures to contain that. When you have, like right now, I can tell you, and that's why we're having this conversation, and that's why I'm saying that we are in trouble as a country. Right now, the population is growing at about nearly 4% per annum. Now, that is a very, very, very high growth in terms of population. But how far we go, how well is our economy growing? Our economy is growing, the last figures they produced, 5.8. 5.8. Compare 5.8 economic growth and 4% economic population growth. This is a disaster we are looking at. Now, the purpose of all these things is to be able to acknowledge the enormity of the challenges that we face. If we accept the truth that this is indeed the case, then the question is, what do we do about it? And this is what the movement is all about. We are saying we need to come together as Zambians, work together to change this country. No single individual can transform this country. Yes, we're not saying, he was talking about bashing bashing the government. First of all, government is expected to deliver. Okay? Asking me to be able to applaud is like a parent who buys a bag of meal for his children. You expect the children to clap. That is expected of a parent anyway. So the same with government. The question is the government doing enough? Are those people in government doing enough? These are the challenges that we should be talking about. And I'm glad that at least there's been no denial of the challenges that we face. So the conversation that we should be having is, how do we address these challenges? Okay? That is why we are saying we need renewal. We cannot continue in the same way. We need to change direction as a country, otherwise we perish. We will perish as a country because things are really bad. Yes, you can have a few green shoots here and there that will give a semblance of positive development, but those green shoots won't make a green field. That is the reality. So what we now need to do is, first of all, to acknowledge that reality, because other people tell you, oh, everything is okay in Zambia. And I'm sorry, things are not okay in Zambia. And that is why, I'll tell you, speaking personally, I have had to leave my practice, okay, so that I could lead this particular movement. Now, let me come back to the issue that is there. Mr. Tukuta talks about the fact that, oh, people are not educated, they're not enlightened. The point is this: the system of government we have is a complex system. Therefore, it is expected of us to understand it. First of all, if you look at the Constitution in itself, first of all, the Constitution expects you to understand it. Did you know that? Article 43 expects each and every citizen to have a basic understanding of the Constitution. It is your duty. It is your obligation. That is why each and every Zambian should be talking about, what can I do to improve things in my country? Not what Mr. Sangwa will do, but what can I do working together with Mr. Sangwa in transforming the country? That is what renewal is all about. That is what the movement is all about. I can tell you right now, we have people on the ground doing fantastic job in their respective communities, mobilizing people, educating people, and that is what renewal is all about. Somebody said, oh, you haven't been on the ground. I'm only one person. I'm limited in terms of time and space. But there are people on the ground in Luapula. There are people on the ground in Northern Province. Okay? And what we have encouraged people is that You have problems in your communities. You understand those problems. Can you mobilize within their communities? Okay? As opposed to treating citizens like children. No. We have to respect children, that each and every one of us has the ability to contribute towards the good of the country.
Sorry to cut you off.
Sure.
Yes, okay. Well, you can come through on 0955-997-997 or 0979-192485, and you can be part of the conversation. Shikana, you can follow up with your question.
But I'll say, still following up on the conversation, or rather the issue that Chela Tokota brought up, which is education. You said at the moment, children who are in grade 7 are incapable of reading and writing. So how can you expect them to understand the Constitution, understand what their rights are, their responsibilities, and therefore make a difference if they can't read?
That is exactly
the basic point.
Those of us that are able to, right? We have to share that burden. Make them understand. Even if we don't, we should be able to speak for them. Okay? So you can't leave it to Mr. Sangwa to be able to drive this process. You're educated, you've been privileged, right? Then it becomes your duty to say, what am I going to do? You have a very powerful platform here. Then the question is, what are you going to do? That is why I'm glad you gave me this invitation to appear. You haven't charged me, by the way, for which I'm very grateful. Okay? So we're using this platform. It is part of that exercise. Now, if I didn't care about Zambia, you know where I would be? I'd be in my office, running billable hours, making money. Okay? But here I am because I've spent time. I'm privileged. I am privileged to have gone to school and received good education.
Council, sorry to cut you short. We have a caller. Hello, it's you to the Power Breakfast.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Sangwa.
Morning,
Thank you so very much. For me this morning, I just wanted to really encourage you, because for me, you bring a fresh breath to our politics and to our leadership of the nation. People try to discourage you, but please, you have a young generation that is behind you. Personally, I'm overwhelmed with your ideas. Just one advice for you, as you bring in along many political players. Please, we do not want a recycle of politicians. Those that you know have been into government and have failed, I know some of them will try to trickle down to this movement. We beg you as a young generation, we do not want a recycle of those people. They have failed us, they have failed the nation, and we pray that God gives you enough wisdom and courage. Politics, they say, is a game of numbers. But if the numbers are not bringing the change that we want, what is that for? So please continue with the movement. We are behind you. Of course, Mr. Jalatuguta, I think for me, is one of the examples that the people need to change their mind. It's about coming together and putting our minds together for the change and for the betterment of this nation. Thank you so very much.
All right, thank you very much for coming through. Before you turn to that question or to your comment or your reaction, let's pick up one more caller. Hello, see you to the Power Breakfast.
Yes, how are you?
Well, thank you. How are you doing yourself?
I'm okay.
What's your name and where are you calling us from?
You are talking to Lukulu Voice on the line.
All right, Lukulu Voice, go ahead with your comment or question.
Thank you very much. How is Mr. Sangwa?
I'm very well, sir.
Thank you very much. First of all, when you come to the public platforms like these ones, when you engage yourself into politics like what you have done, you are bound to scrutiny. I think you are aware about that. Your consistency and inconsistency, you remember what you did over eligibility of late President Ed Kalungu. At first you said it's not eligible. And then from there you change that, no, it's eligible. The same mouth, huh? Then what kind of expiring are you going to inspire to the young ones, having changed goalposts? Secondly, since you are in politics, I'm still asking you a question. What has happened to DBZ Bank, which is in liquidation as we speak now? Because we hear that there's something that also you are part and parcel of the same. So you have to clear the air so that people understand why there's a free education from grade 1 to grade 12, so that the government is well assisted people who understand what the government is doing because they are well educated. People cannot be also listening to you. Constitution should be for the people, not for the learned people like you. Just for the lawyers, no. It's supposed for everybody. So when you say something, continue what you say, but don't change goalposts along the way. So you want to clear the air since you are now in. Even your system of saying your campaigns must be funded by the people. You will remember you're saying they have those who want to come and fund this, should fund 100 kwacha and all that kind of thing. For me, that's amount to a scam. That's not necessary. Then meaning you are not ready. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Let me ask, I don't know how many times I'm going to explain this issue of the inconsistency. Okay, allow me to try and explain this thing. Now, I think this gentleman appeared on another station. He asked the same question, and I replied it. So let me try and...
We can just summarize it.
Yes, very simple, right? In 2021, President Lungu, we went to court. We said, President Lungu, having been elected twice, it does not qualify to stand in 2026, right? That was the argument. Now, when you go to court, there are always two sides to it. His lawyers argued that he's eligible, and we argued he's not eligible, right? Under our system, the people that have a final say is the court. The court ruled that President Lungu was eligible to stand in 2021. That was the decision of the court. As a result, he stood and lost, right? Having stood and lost in 2021, the issue was he eligible to stand in 2026? The position of the law is that he was eligible to stand in 2026. Why? Because you are barred when you are elected. Because what the court said, the two previous elections he had, 2015 and 2016, did not count. The only one that counted was the 2016 election. Therefore, he had one more shot. He never used that opportunity. Therefore, he was eligible to stand in 2026. That is what I meant. And that was based on the decision of the court. When you have a position and the court rules, you are bound by that decision. Whether you like it or not, that becomes the official position. That is exactly what transpired. I hope I'm answering this question for the last time. I did not flip-flop, okay? If there is anyone who did the flip-flopping, it is the Constitutional Court, okay? Who later on reversed themselves and said President Lungu is not eligible to stand in 2026, and that their earlier decision was wrong. Not me. I never said that.
Okay.
Okay? Now, when we are talking about, again, guys, you know, friends, ladies and gentlemen, countrymen, we have to be responsible. When we're talking about a constitution, it's not an elitist document. It's a national document. That is why there is an obligation on each and every one of us to understand it. Okay? You see, the Constitution is like a manual on how this country is supposed to be run.
So would you say the Constitution should be amended?
Because you did call for a constitutional reset, so which is better?
Who called for a constitutional reset?
I believe you did.
Me?
Yes.
I've never called for a constitutional amendment, never. In fact, I have stood against the amendment of the Constitution.
Well, rather you have said, you have told the people to test the Constitution rather than amend it.
That's correct.
So, but if the Constitution fails testing via repeated crisis, what then?
Have we had any crisis?
But should we take that plan? Do we have a contingency plan?
Here is a problem. Here is the position, right? The Constitution was drafted by human beings, right?
Yes.
They never said this is a perfect document, right? But there is an inbuilt mechanism. That mechanism is that you will read it, and I will read it. I will understand it, in a certain way, you understand it another way, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to beat you to agree with me.
Yes.
You know what we do? We go to court. Court. My sister here is saying this is the correct interpretation, and I'm saying this is the correct interpretation. We have right now a group of 8 judges in this country who do nothing but just read the Constitution. Okay?
Yes.
These are the arbiters. These are the people who will tell us. What they tell us is final. Okay? So we already have a system in place. We do not need to change the Constitution. We build on it. That is why when we have an issue, I'll give an example. In 2016, when we are representing the current president, one of the issues we had was, what is the meaning of 14 days? Okay? Does 14 days include Saturday and Sunday? That was one of the issues we are arguing about. The court went there and told us 14 days include Saturdays and Sundays, right? Because that was a controversy. So that issue is settled. You do not amend the Constitution, and you cannot imagine a crisis, a constitutional crisis. But if there is one, what do? You go to court. You don't go for the amendment of the Constitution. Okay? That is the position of the law. And that is why I have never supported, I never supported Bill 10, I did not support Bill 7, and I don't support what is currently going on. It is completely wrong.
So
we should be...
sorry to cut you off short.
Yes.
So what are you not okay with in the entire Constitution amendment? What are you not okay? Are there particular clauses you're not okay with?
No.
Or the entire thing, the entire document?
I'm opposed to the amendment of the Constitution.
Why?
Very simple, because there is nothing wrong with it. Okay? There is nothing wrong with it.
You don't agree with the inclusion of more youth participation?
But systems are already there. There are already systems there. When you are talking about youth participation and everything else, it's a matter of policy. There is nothing that stops the government from enacting an act of parliament, okay? Because there are already guidelines.
Delimitation?
Pardon?
Even delimitation, you're not okay with that?
Can we talk about that?
Okay.
Can we? Okay. I'll repeat it. I'll repeat myself. You know, these are all things that are being cooked up and confused, right? Delimitation has nothing to do with creating new constituencies. Okay? Are we agreed on that? The whole purpose of delimitation, it does not require increasing the number of constituencies. What it is talking about is that every 10 years, you do a census, right? Now, what happens is this. We have 156 constituencies where there's supposed to be elections, right?
Yes.
Now, delimitation is supposed to ensure that you take that population of, say, 20 million, you divide it by 156. Let's assume the answer is, say, 100,000. Delimitation is supposed to ensure that every constituency has plus or minus 100,000, right?
Yes.
Now, some constituencies grow faster than others. What do? The purpose of delimitation is now to say it's about the boundaries between constituencies. That's what delimitation is all about. So if you see that there are more people in one constituency as opposed, let's assume the average number per constituency is supposed to be 100. And then you discover that the next constituency, because there's some economic activities going on, a lot of people during that 10-year period have moved in that constituency to the point where they have risen to say 200,000, right? So which means that the MP in that constituency has more work than the other person with 100,000, right? To balance up, you now say we will move the boundary between the two constituencies so that the number between the two constituencies balances up, comes to about 140 per constituency. That is what delimitation is all about.
All right.
Okay? So that each MP has a certain number of people. It has nothing to do with the size of the constituency, of the geographical size of the constituency, but it has everything to do with the representation.
Sorry to cut you off short. you can be part of the conversation. The numbers are 0979-192485 or 0955-997-997, and you can give us a call right now. Hello, it's you to the Power Breakfast.
Good morning. My name is Collins. Good morning, Chef.
Yes, good morning. Go ahead with your comment or question.
All right. So my question is simple. What are you going to do about the corruption? I haven't heard anything about corruption so far since I've been following. And then the second thing I'd like to contribute is, you see, with China, Dubai, and these other countries, as we were speaking of 1960s and something like that, Zambia being one of the richest. Honestly, it's because these people are selfish when it comes to investors. When an investor gets in, they just don't invest individually, they invest with the locals. So what do you think can be done about that as you maybe presume in the future that you'd be in power? Are you going to do the same? Are investors coming independently?
Secondly,
maybe after some time, maybe as Zambian would also have a share to that investment.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for coming through. I think we can accommodate one more call before you answer them as a collective. The numbers are 0979-192485 or 0955-997-997. And we do have a text message here. Good morning. Politicians have failed us. That is why a kingdom run by a king is better than this politician. That is why politics is not in the Bible. They say one Zambia, one nation, really relative staying in rural area, no electricity, no network, no good roads, no clean water, and 61 years of independence compared to the people who stay in towns. All right. Hello, good morning, to the Power Breakfast.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning. Who are we speaking to?
We're speaking to Mr. Nyondo.
Mr. Nyondo? Nirongo. Okay, go ahead with your comment or question, and kindly please make it brief.
Okay, good, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Sangwa. Yeah, I'm very interested in the conversation we're having here. One thing I wanted to really understand is we seem to have the hunger for presidency in Zambia. I don't know what is happening, but I can allude to the fact that we have a number of people wanting to be president, whether in opposition or whatever. Now, I want to understand, what is the drive for this? Is it selfishness, or what is the motive? Is it to save or not? And number two, I want to understand, I understand we are coming up with a roadmap for your party, the movement that we are doing. I still feel there is still more that you need to come up with, especially in rural areas where education is very limited. I'm one person who believes that if we are advocating for fair and equity distribution of wealth in the country, I am of the view that we need to put deliberate steps, especially in the health sector and education sector, which for me is very critical. We have presidents and ministers whose children cannot go to these hospitals, local hospitals and local schools, and yet we are there bragging to say we have a better system in education and everything. Is this really a policy that you want to adopt, or what are the mechanisms that you want to come around that so that there is a common platform for everyone? Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for coming through. So, maybe you answer them as a collective.
Yeah, let me try and piece them together.
Okay.
One is the issue of corruption, right? Corruption is real. But we don't just talk about corruption. What is happening? Now, corruption is simply a symptom. What is the problem, the challenge we have is that we tend to treat the symptoms and not treating the underlying problems. Even the issue of poor education and lack of access to medical facilities, these are symptoms. But we need to look at the underlying reasons. The underlying reasons is very simple. We have weak government institutions. So what does that mean? What it means, like I started off by saying, to say we have very fragile institutions in existence. Institutions do not operate as they should, okay? let's look at the issue, and that is why, as a movement, we are saying transformation of the country requires the involvement of each and every Zambian. We all have a stake. We have a responsibility to be able to say, what is my contribution in fighting corruption, for example? Okay? We need to do that. We need to take a deliberate decision to say, this is what my part is going to be in addressing the corruption. Because who are the people that are corrupt? Invariably, we ourselves as citizens, okay? We are also culprits in perpetuating that particular vice. Now, it is possible that we can make a deliberate and conscious decision to say, whatever happens, I'm not going to pay a bribe to get what I want. Now, that is your civic responsibility. But if you find it possible to say it is okay for you to pay a bribe, you are a problem. It is a requirement. We have to make a deliberate and conscious decision to say, do we want a corruption-free Zambia? Now, that is not the responsibility of government alone. It is the responsibility of each and every one of us to purpose that we should fight corruption. We have a choice. Either we allow it as it is, or we fight it. Now, the quality of education, I think people have talked about the quality of education. Yes, the quality of education is poor. It's very poor, no doubt. And you're talking about people in the rural areas having challenges. Yes, they do. But do you know what is happening in the movement? We have people, for example, I can't do everything. That is why we are saying we have to work as a group. We have to work as a unit. Okay, each and every one of us doing what we can. I'm not going to sit here, for example, and tell the people of Zambia to say there is some magic wand that will be waved and all the problems of Zambia go away. No. But if we work together, we choose to work together to transform our country, we can overcome the challenges that we face. Now, there's always this notion to say people in the villages are somewhat dull. They're not dull. They're quite intelligent people. It's also a very terrible assumption to believe that everybody in the village is ignorant. No. There are people, for example, that are educated, that have decided to relocate to the villages. Okay? Now, they need to be engaged. They need to be involved. As part of the movement, I explained before, there are people, for example, who have taken that message, which we generated. You know what they have done? They have translated them into local languages. Okay? And taken them to the various provinces. That is how you transform a country. Okay? Each and every citizen must have a stake. And that is what we are doing in the movement, is to encourage each and every one of us. We are not weak. Individually, we may be weak, but collectively, together, we can transform this country. Okay? Given a choice, like I said, somebody said, I will not stand in front of Zambians and tell them lies in order to win an election. I would rather tell the truth and lose an election than to tell lies and win an election. Okay? Those are choices we have to make as a people. But the problems that we have in Zambia won't go away until we choose to change course. We have to make a deliberate and conscious decision to change course. Otherwise, we are headed for a disaster. We are in trouble as a country. Therefore, each and every one of us, if you read all the documents we have generated about the movement, we are saying a leader, one person, John Sangwa, I do not have solution. I cannot transform this country alone. But you, my sister, and you, my sister, when we join together, we can change this country. That is the message of the movement. Okay? We would like, and what is proof of that? We just don't want you to say, I agree. No. If you agree, can you go to the website? Okay? And enter your details, either as a volunteer or other people, surprisingly, they're writing to say, I want to support anonymously, which is fine, because people are so scared, which should not be the case in a democracy. Everybody should be at liberty to express themselves.
I'm sorry to cut you off, Council. Just time is not on our side, so maybe
Yes.
if you can just wrap up, maybe answering the other questions that were asked by the callers.
Yes. There are so.
There are a number of them.
Yeah, first
Maybe
of
you
all,
can cherry pick
there
some
is
of them.
this notion that I'm an elite. I'm not an elite, okay?
Wouldn't you say you fall into the textbook definition of...
Pardon?
Wouldn't you say you fall into the textbook definition of being somebody who's elite?
No, I am a privileged person. I went to school, right? And I've seen the value of education. I would like to see each and every Zambian child have the opportunities I had, okay? That's not being an elitist. As an elitist, I wouldn't care less whether the majority of the people are starving or not. I'll be comfortable in my air-conditioned office and go on with my life. And by the way, but I'm saying there is more we can do. We have so much in terms of resources. God has given us literally everything. But what we can do is that when we work hard, transform our systems, right? It is possible to have a situation in this country whereby every child goes to school, every child has enough food to eat. We can actually transform this country from a developing country to become into a first world country. But that is a choice we have to make as Zambians. We can either decide to say, okay, we continue as it is, which is a direct route to disaster, or we can come together and transform this country. That is our choice, and that is what the movement is all about. We don't just want people to say, oh, we are with you. If you are with us, go to our website and enter your details there.
Okay. So as we wrap it up, what exactly is your website so that people can go there?
It's called Movement for National Renewal. We are talking about a renewal. What we are basically saying is that we can't continue doing the same thing that we've done in the last 60 years. That is what has brought us here. Zambia is basically a broken country. So you cannot fix a broken country by doing the same thing. We need to do something different. And that different starts with us Zambians accepting the responsibility to transform this country. Okay? That is what the movement is all about.
All right. You want to say?
Okay.
Due to time.
That is what, yes, I know we can go on. And I even warned you to say you have to time me properly.
Yeah, we have to do it.
Yes. No, thank you very much for this opportunity. But I just want to make a final call. The final call to the Zambians is that together, we can transform this country. We have to make a choice. In any case, we have no choice. We have no choice but to transform this country. And we can do that by working together.
Well, definitely next time we'd like to break that down step by step as well.
Yes.
And well, once again, I would like to say thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. We haven't talked so much.
No,
we're supposed to talk about Bill 7 and the rest, but I think maybe that is a topic for another day. For now, thank you very much for the opportunity.